Welcome to the SDR DiscoCall vidcast and podcast, a show designed for brand new sales reps working in the world of tech sales. I'm your host, Neil Buyan, and I'm going to be taking you on a journey on the SDR DiscoCall vidcast and podcast. Did you know that you can watch this show live with the guests on YouTube? This show is available on YouTube at happyselling.io. Welcome, listeners, to a Dynamic Duo special episode. Hello, listeners and watchers of the SDR DiscoCall podcast, or maybe /vidcast. I'm kind of figuring out the name as we go along. But today we have a show that I've been waiting for so long. And in previous episodes, I always spoke about this concept of a dynamic duo. And I was honored to meet two great people from the world of sales and development earlier this year. And funny enough, one of them recommended the other to come on the show. And then I kind of said, what about the other guy? Could we get him on the show and could we do this together? And it's finally happened. And I'm so freaking excited. But rather than me going on and on and on, as I normally do, I'd love to introduce our guests. So Vivek and Amitesh, welcome to the SDR DiscoCall podcast. How are you doing today, gents?
We're doing good. Happy to be here. Happy to spread the happy selling hashtag throughout the world.
Love it. And Vivek, how are you doing, sir?
Doing super amazing. Super stoked to be here. Thanks so much for having us, and it's good to see that we're going to give out insights with a team orientation. So I'm super excited.
Absolutely love it. So could you just let the listeners and watchers out there know who are you, where are you from in the world, and currently what you're doing and where are you at? If we could start with Vivek.
It's Vivek here, as we all know, and I am currently based in a small little island in the Pacific, in British Columbia, in Canada, on the West Coast. And currently, I'm a product specialist, aka SDR/BDR, at an Australian HR tech company called IntelliHR.
Thank you so much. And Amitesh.
Hey guys, this is Amitesh here. I'm working at Bookchain, and it's a Toronto-based tech firm. So Bookchain is like an all-in-one workforce scheduling platform that enables healthcare facilities to fill shifts, schedule, and communicate with their internal and external agencies.
Love it. Thank you so much for the introduction. And again, where are you based in the world, Amitesh? Just for the listeners.
Toronto. I'm in Toronto, Canada.
Perfect. So we've got two gents from the world of Canada today. So thank you so much for waking up to record with myself today. I really do appreciate that. And it's kind of been a cool story as to how you both were connected in the world of sales development and SaaS and startups. And the thing is, when we last connected, you weren't working at the current companies and positions that you were. You were originally at Vidyard, and that's kind of how we got connected. And we shared a lot of comments and likes on LinkedIn. And I thought, you know what, I really like these two. And to your point, Amitesh, you're like a Batman and Robin dynamic duo. I don't know who the Batman is and I don't know who the Robin is. But just for the listeners out there, Vivek, can you kind of just give us a little short bit of originally where you've come from and how you got to Vidyard? And then I'd love to come back to Amitesh with the same side as well.
For sure. So I'll try to cover 7 to 8 years in 30 seconds. So I am originally an engineer, and a lot of people around me call me Vivek. And the reason is because I ask a lot of questions. And during my engineering, I started asking, how are we going to monetize these machines? And that was sort of my tipping point into sales, and started off my career with a sales job at a Honda car dealership, where I dove into all of the basic concepts of sales. And throughout my journey, went into startups, went the hard way, moved to Canada, learned that the tech community is super amazing in Victoria and Vancouver both, and sort of got thrown into it, and quickly learned that there's this course or a boot camp called Uvaro, which is actually training people on sales development, especially in the SaaS context, and got super intrigued, took that, went all out on LinkedIn, met wonderful people like yourself, Neil, and Amitesh, and that's where we came across Vidyard as well, and we came across this wonderful internship opportunity where and we had been started using Vidyard, so we were sort of sold with the tool,
Mm.
and we were super excited, to be interning at Vidyard and eventually land into this role.
Love it. That's a cool story and greatly wrapped up in a short space of time. Like that's a lot of experience. If I get it right, like obviously you were called Vivek because you were constantly asking questions. Started sales like with Honda sales. Was looking to kind of get into the startup scene. And then in 2019, like you figured out that sales is so much more than what you were doing at Honda. Then you went over to Canada. You were working with, I think, in Victoria, tech comms. You realized it wasn't really for you, but then you came across Vidyard through the internship that he's doing and training in terms of SDR and sales development. And then, yeah, you kind of got to where you are today. Is that right, Vivek?
Absolutely, almost, I would say.
Correct me, please correct me. Did I miss anything out there?
Not really. I mean, there's a lot of variables there in between, but I mean, on a high level, yes, that's the story.
And Amitesh, coming over to you, like, what's your story of like how you got to like Vidyard and where you are?
Oh man, I think 40% of the story is probably the similar to Vivek. After getting into the Uvaro Tech Sales Bootcamp. But before that, I was back home in India. I was a founder of my own company for good 5 to 6 years, and my two greatest loves in life, professionally, are A was tech and B is interior design. So I kind of was a founder at a interior design firm where I used to get like projects, and I was responsible for my own like revenue generation. So a lot of sales and business development was kind of my job at my company. And then cut to moving to Canada last year because of the pandemic. Everything had to be, I had to shut shop.
Yeah.
Essentially, like a 5 6 year old business, I had to shut shop, and uh, that was sad. But then life goes on, and moved to Canada, got into the tech sales boot camp, got the opportunity to to get like a lot of really great instructors and like learned a lot there, and then kind of landed the internship program at Vidyard, where Vivek and I met, and it's been one hell of a journey till now.
Absolutely love that. So I'm like, so again, coming from India, like running your own business, and again, with a lot of us, including myself, like COVID did impact, and it kind of like had to make us, evaluate, reiterate ourselves, reinvent ourselves as well. And I remember that you saying like you were a lover of tech as well, and this is something you did with your father in terms of business, helping them scale with tools and techniques.
Oh, yeah.
And then, everything happens for a reason, and it took you on a journey to Canada where you went in that boot camp. You met your kind of your co-partner as well, and working in the world of like video, which again everybody knows I'm a huge fan of, and that's kind of like where we've been conversing a hell of a lot on LinkedIn. But I think again, so this is a free for all conversation. By all means, jump in over each other or talk like how you see it fit. But I'm again, as a dynamic duo, like kind of what was like it like meeting each other at that boot camp, then going into Vidyard, and like how were you guys working together? Because like you had some successes and you had some certain ways of working together to help each other out. I'd love for you both to walk us through how that relationship and journey was built out.
uh
I always let Amitesh take the lead. Yes.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you. So honestly, we kind of, uh, okay. So like, we met each other at the tech sales boot camp. Kind of, we were just a high and by kind of sort of a situation there. But then I got into the internship program, say 1 month before Vivek, and when he joined in, it was chemistry on the go. We actually used to. Have like team meetings almost on Mondays and Fridays. But then we kind of thought it was more important for us and our growth to have like a coffee chat almost on a daily basis. And I think that is what kind of led this camaraderie to where it is today, where even like even if we are at different companies now, we still share a lot of ideas. We have each other on Slack, on WhatsApp. We kind of have our internal jokes, and we keep on cracking them. And it's been fun till now. Yeah.
Absolutely love that. And Vivek, from your side?
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty interesting how even in the virtual world, you can still have that same in-person kind of a connection if you put in some effort. So kudos to Amitesh. When I joined Vidyard, it was my first job, in a
Mm.
remote role, and I didn't really know how to go about things, and I'm as I said, I'm curious. I started asking questions, and Amitesh was fortunately willing to help. Sort of started interacting almost on a daily basis, as Amitesh mentioned. And what we realized is that, especially in the virtual environment, we are all sitting in our rooms,
Mm.
working from home. It's super important to have that personal connection to transition into a professional one, because until and unless you don't develop that, how are you going to collaborate, ask questions, and learn from each other and contribute eventually to your own growth and your organization's growth? So I think it's super important to have that. And once you're comfortable working with your own colleagues, you sort of develop that trust. And once you develop that trust, then boom, it's teamwork, and you're
Yeah.
never looking back.
Absolutely love that. And that's the thing, like in a few SaaS companies that I've worked with, especially like when it becomes from onboarding and when you're like taking on new hires, I think it's really cool like having a buddy system, that buddy that you can ask those millions of questions, and also like ask advice of how do we prospect, how do we talk to personas, how do we send out emails, like how do we book those meetings, because that's how some of us get paid as well. And a lot of the time, I've seen it on both sides of the fence. So sometimes it's just like, Neil, this is your buddy. You can reach out to them whenever you want. And sometimes I found that person isn't as warm or they don't seem as available. And sometimes I'm worried to actually bug them. I feel like that I'm bugging them. And then on the other side of the fence, I've had somebody who's been very proactive. So they would check in with me every day or like email me at the end of the day or Slack me and say, so Neil, how was your day? Was there any concerns? Are there any questions? Or sometimes in other places, you have a buddy at the beginning of onboarding, and they're the person to meet with you at the end of each week to certify your knowledge and like what have you learned and what questions have come out. And then kind of when you get into month 3, they kind of like taper off. They'll always be your good best friend, like helping you out in that startup, but they kind of like take on the next person that comes for a buddy. But in your opinion, gents, because you've been kind of in essence like a buddy system, what's the best way to like help buddies out, and kind of what best practices would you suggest to like fostering that relationship for a new hire?
Vivek, you would want to take the lead here, since
For sure. So I think the key aspect to realizing that is that you're always on day one, no matter wherever you are, how much ever you learn, sales or in general. I think any space is something, especially tech. It's so dynamic. It's on the go. Everything's changing by the day, by the week. So to have that sort of mindset that I know everything
Mm.
is a myth. So I think when you're always on day one, you tend to be curious. You tend to ask questions, and even though if say for example we are learning some tool when we are working, and there will be a point, I can give you in 100%, you will
Mm.
be stuck somewhere. So at that point you will realize, oh, okay, I don't know everything. And that's when you rewind and then ask, then you realize, okay, I am in his shoes
Mm.
as well, or her shoes as well. So it's that's that point where you realize, okay, you don't know everything, and it's okay if someone asks me stupid questions as well, because I have been in that
Yeah.
point at some point. So that's something. It's very simple, and you sort of develop that mindset to answer
Mm.
questions, whatever they might be. And it's a one time thing, and once you go from there, you're never looking back, as I mentioned. Amitesh, you feel
so
free to add there.
basically, like my 2 cents on it is like having like a human connect is always important, and the basics of any human connect is showing a little bit of vulnerability,
Yeah.
and that's where I kind of gelled with Vivek, and it happened like in like it like in an instant, because we were just talking and it was kind of his first day and I still remember it. uh, and he asked me a lot of questions and I was like, whoa, this guy is really curious. And I too, by the end of the week, I realized that he's almost learned everything that I took like 2 weeks to learn. And like full credit to him, and probably the buddy system we kind of started building on, that his onboarding was like, for me it took 2 weeks, for him it took 4 days. So
Nice.
it's always important to kind of have that kind of situation where you can bounce off ideas, ask silly questions. And like there aren't any silly questions, but it's always an opportunity. Even if I didn't realize something at a given point, he asked a question, and it got me also thinking, hey, this is also important. And that's how you kind of grow through that situation, and it's important.
I absolutely love that, gents. If we could just like document that and just give that as like the blueprint to like future SaaS companies, like this is how you build a buddy system. Because I think a lot of people just say, okay, yeah, you're my buddy, just ask me anything that you want. But having that sort of structure, and I agree with you, like having that empathetic feel towards that new hire, that person coming through, like I've been in that person's shoes. I know what it feels like to be the lost guy or girl in a new company. And I love that also as Amitesh, because those questions that you get asked are being asked from a fresh perspective. And sometimes I always like to have like a childlike manner, that I'm always curious and I'm always trying to see everything for the first time. But when you do a day-to-day job and you're doing it monotonously over and over and over again, you kind of lose that essence. So by having that buddy ask those questions, it makes you, like you say, think about it yourself as, do you know what? I never really thought of that. And yeah, that's a good point. That's a good question. And same way, like I used to say, like I would say to my new hires, like there is no such thing as a stupid question. It's only stupid if you don't ask and you sit there silent, because if you try to answer something where you haven't learned about it and you're on the call with a prospect, they're going to smell BS and they're going to know that you're BSing. So don't be afraid to ask. And I think it's daunting for a lot of new people because they don't want to seem like an idiot. They don't want to be asking a dumb question. But again, I don't think it's dumb. And we definitely learn from others. So I was like reading a quote. I've been kind of getting into Stoicism the last couple of days, but Socrates said that smart people learn from everything and everyone. Average people learn from their experiences, and stupid people already have all the answers. Right? And I
That's
think,
good.
yeah. And I think it's a case of like, learning from each other. And that's kind of like this is again why I'm doing the podcast, because I don't have all the answers. And I want to meet people that have gone through different experiences. They've learned from each other and they help me learn as well. And this is again why we're putting it out to the listeners and watchers out there. But like during your time through Vidyard, and I think, being in that remote world, like for video, like what was cool, because we've had a guest from Vidyard. We had Courtney Christie, but that was quite a while ago. What was it like working as interns for this, video startup? What was that like for you both?
For like me, like coming from a sort of a introvert here, video was something I was not comfortable with, initially. And it even then, I was at a stage in life where I came to the conclusion that do whatever is making you uncomfortable today. Do it. And it took, I remember, like the first 1 minute video that I had to make, it took me 2 days to make it. And it wasn't easy to see myself on camera and like over analyzing different things. Oh, is my hair all right? Oh, am I looking fine? Oh, what did I say? Or oh, I'm fumbling too much. Oh, I'm saying a lot of ums and ahs. And that was something that that was challenging for me initially. And then I kind of got used to using video and probably seeing myself. And it's been one hell of a journey, because Vidyard kind of pushed me into a corner wherein I had no other option but to fight back. And fight back we did. And thanks to Vivek, and thanks to all the people at Vidyard, they were a huge support during that process. And even the manager I wanted to like give a shout out to is Spencer,
Yep.
who worked with us at URO, he kind of, gave a lot of good feedback and, throughout the process. And then, Vivek was always on a back end call because his support was also important for me.
I love that. That is cool. And shouts out to Spencer as well.
Sure.
I think like you say, getting in front of a video and a camera, this is something I've got used to over the years, and I love doing it now, but initially I was always scared doing it. And the idea of video prospecting is something, a seed that I try to plant into any training client I go into, or, SDRs or BDRs that I'm giving advice. And admittedly, some of them were like you, Amitesh, were like, "No, I don't like doing this. This is really uncomfortable." And I think the first point is to do things to outside of your comfort zone. That's where the growth happens, and that's where you can realize your potential. You just got to take that first step. And I kind of like equate it to a gym. The hardest thing about gym and fitness is not so much about the gym or the reps, it's walking through that front door.
Yeah.
That's the hardest bit of working out and training. But it's once you've walked through the door, you'll then most likely go to the weights or whatever machines, and it's a walk in the
Yeah.
park. And then you walk out of the gym door with a smiley face. Oh, do you know what? That wasn't that bad. I'm glad I did that workout today. And that's kind of like the narrative that I give to SDRs. But the other piece that I remind them of is majority of SDRs or BDRs that I'm talking to, I'm like, what is it that you want to continue doing after being an SDR? And synonymously, a lot of the time it's they want to become account executives, right? They want to sell the product. So my question to them is, so how are you going to be selling this to your prospects? And they're like, doing meetings, like showing them a demo. I said, okay, what, on a camera? They're like, yeah. And I said, you're going to have to speak and look into the camera and like see people's reactions, right? They're like, yeah. And then maybe one day, like when COVID's like all figured out and everything, you're going to have to go meet them face to face, right? They're like, yeah. And you're going to actually having to be talking to an audience, right? I said, what's more nerve wracking, getting in front of a camera to send a video to a prospect, or being in a demo or a meeting? They're like, being in a demo or a meeting, and I'm like, yeah, exactly. So my advice to them is like, get comfortable with this, because one day you're gonna have to do this face to face in reality, and here's a good training ground to like get all the mess ups, the f ups that we have, and there's nothing wrong. And I think in comparison to email, like email is just text, it's just words, there's no tonality to it. People buy from people. So the vibe that you're putting out on that camera is a great opportunity, So I digress. But Vivek, for you, like your world, and then coming into Vidyard, like what was that experience like for you?
So it's pretty interesting how I mean, same as Amitesh, it was a massive challenge for me. So traditionally, I've been sort of a traditional person where salesperson where I've been always hammered with the idea you got to meet your customers in person to conduct sales, to conduct negotiations. And I'm like, when COVID struck, like we are salespeople, how are we going to go about this? And the
Mm.
only solution I saw was video. And I've been sort of anti-social, anti-selfie sort of a guy, and that was a massive roadblock. Same as Amitesh, I the first video was like 40, 45 retakes, reading the script like a robot, and I was telling to myself, this is not happening. But again, when you don't have a choice, what do? As you said, you have to go out there, keep practicing, with Vidyard. Everyone, as Amitesh again said, like everyone was so supportive,
Mm.
and it's just like cold calls, right? Like you will never get there with 10, 20. You got to make
Yeah.
those 100, 200, 500 cold calls to get comfortable. So I think it's the same with video. Keep at it, and no one wants to see a
Mm.
Netflix show when you're sending an email. Just be yourself. Your background doesn't need to be perfect, or your hair doesn't need to be the best. You just got to be yourself, in the same tone, and just go at it and just deliver value with an impactful message. And I think that's about it. I mean, there's nothing more to it.
Mhm.
And apart from that, digressing again, um, with Vidyard, the team was solid. As Amitesh mentioned, Spencer. There are all of these wonderful people at Vidyard. It's a very big team, and everyone was very kind enough to give us time, even though we are interns. Um, and they were open to chatting. Giving, sharing their experiences, and sort of that was a learning point for us. And that right now, like all of us use video so proactively. So I think kudos
I
to
love it.
everyone
And
who's helped us
also,
in doing that.
that's kind of evolved for you as well, Vivek, in terms of video. And we'll come on to that piece in a moment. But coming back to this Batman and Robin dynamic duo. So, as we've seen with great partnerships with be it superheroes or things that we've learned in stories or like watching other leaders in other companies or teams working together, there is also the element where Batman may have a strategy, but Robin disagrees because he doesn't feel that it's the right way. Or perhaps Robin, he kind of wants to go solo and do his own thing, and Batman's looking like, dude, you've still got like a lot to learn. Like, we're a team. And sometimes teamwork does have its conflicts and it also has like moments of friction. So I just wanted to know, like, were there any moments of friction, like with ideas and thoughts, and how did you guys mediate that? And also, have that professional side of it, but you also have that friendship side of it. How do you keep that stuff in sync, guys?
I mean, full transparency with you, Neil. We had tips almost every day. We had different opinions on how to make coffee. Like the smallest topic, like how to make coffee. We had different opinions on that, and that's beautiful if you kind of understand, because there are two people are going to have like different set of expectations, experiences, and what they want to say and how they want to say it. And it's always important, because two conflicting opinions have to, it's like one line's coming from here and one line's coming there has to be a intersection, right? And that's the sweet spot that we kind of worked at, and that kind of gave us a lot of success at the internship as well.
Love it. Vivek, from your side of point of view?
Uh, So it's pretty interesting how there's an overlap with respect to everything. Like everything builds up upon everything. Now, what I mean to say is when we spoke about the buddy system, being friends, establishing that trust, a conflict doesn't really remain a conflict. It sort of becomes two fresh ideas where we are having a discussion about, not really an argument or a conflict. And that's when you start appreciating, okay, you know what, you try that,
Mm.
I try this. So you were sort of indulging in A B testing and then coming back with results and seeing what is working, what is not. So instead of doing that A B testing on your own, spread it out in your team. Let everyone give their 100% towards their own ideas and actions and come back with those results. And again, as a team, why not use that and exploit it? So, with respect to that, I mean, Amitesh and I think another point to add is like, so in order to avoid those conflicts to build up, just have a
Mm.
regular, like a once in a week check-in sort of a thing where like, I think, you're not doing that well. He's like, why do you think so? I have this, just come with a reason, give an idea and see, and
Yeah.
just let them know that that is working and he'll appreciate it. Why not?
In an ideal world, yes,
So
and it does
it's
it
pretty
does
easy,
happen, and
I
I,
think.
I love the way that your dynamic works with each other, and being honest, and saying that sometimes, yeah, we do have tiffs, we argue about certain topics, and I think debate is something very healthy, especially in a relationship, be it with your partner or with your teammate. And being able to voice your opinions without the fear of being shot down or completely ignored, and that's not always easy, like in an office environment. So sometimes it can be equally even more challenging on a remote environment, because you can't be with that person like face to face and see their expressions or think, okay, once they shut the Zoom, how did they exactly react to that? Are they effing and blinding about me, etc.? But I think having that safe space, like you say, Vivek, to like have that one-to-one to say like, hey, dude, what's up? Things aren't cool, but also come with ideas and active listening, the same way we have with prospects, being there to listen to the other person's point of view. And I think a thing I had to do when maturing through my sales career is I always thought my way was the only way it's going to work. Like people would come to me with these ideas. I'm like, nah, I'm not just going to do like you crack on, do what you want to do. I don't really care. But I started realizing that, sometimes being vulnerable was the best way that I got trust with somebody else. So, for example, Vivek and Amitesh, I really want to try out this idea, but I don't think it's going to work. What do you think? And they would then give their honest opinion. I would listen to it. I would take the feedback, and I'm always looking to improve. And then equally, what I'd find is people will then come back to me saying, Neil, I know this isn't in your world, but I've got this idea and I'd love to get your thought on it. And that's how I got the ping pong sort of effect with having constant conversations with people. And then having that trust of I could tell them and say, I think that's shit. I don't think that's going to work. I really don't. And this is why I don't think it is. But I'm interested to see what result you get out of it, and if it's really good, then share it. And then I'm open to trying it as well.
Yeah. Another good thing, out of this is like, if you love growth, you need some sort of friction. Growth can never happen without friction. There has to be friction, learning experiences throughout, and that's where this buddy system kind of works. And you need fresh ideas. You need to bounce ideas on someone and like kind of see what the end results are. And yeah, without friction, there's no growth. Yeah.
100% agree. 100% agree. It's not a comfortable ride, but I'd rather be a little bit uncomfortable than just being completely comfortable and complacent. And yeah, like, I've butted heads many times with many people, and I think it's a good thing because it's helped me personally grow, and it's helped me take out of my comfort zone. But I think equally there are people, watchers and listeners out there that are always worried to make that comment or to give that feedback, and that could be the thing that's holding them back. So sometimes it's picking the right time when to have that conversation as well. So for example, if a deal went completely south and everything crashed, maybe at that point in time, it's not great to, say, I think you kind of fucked up and I think that wasn't the way you should have done it. But maybe picking another time when things have kind of settled a little bit and then saying to that person like, hey, it'd be great to catch up in a couple of days just to pick this back up. And I think that could be another way that you can circumvent the initial blow up that could happen or that we're fearing. But for both of you as well, like you've taken this internship route, and that's a great way to get into SaaS companies and something I advocate more, and I'm seeing more prevalent with a lot of startups as well. But you have both since obviously moved on from Vidyard, and you're now into the next phases of your career. Like, could you just walk us through like what was going on, like what made the move, kind of what you're doing, and kind of what you're going through at the moment? Amitesh, if we could start off with you.
Okay, so right now I'm still with the onboarding process, but then and this is essentially still like a startup company, and I am the first sales hire after the VP of sales. So it's just me and him, and we have like a lot of discussions about how the training has to go and what's important and what the product's like. And then I take it upon myself to kind of meet with like the Q&A people or the backend developers or even this customer success side of the teams. And we have like used, like I've had like yesterday I had like 6 hours of Zoom calls, and I didn't get tired because there were so many good people, and I'm always enthusiastic to kind of meet new people now and kind of take charge of like what my job and my role is. At the sooner the better for the company, and kind of finding more efficient ways of doing what the processes are going to be like as of now. But then 4 days in, no complaints.
I love that. I love that. And you know what? I'm going through a similar thing as well. I've recently taken on like an SDR manager position. And yeah, that's what I've been doing. I think this meeting, I've had over 20 meetings this week. I'm getting a little bit of Zoom fatigue, but meeting people, seeing their processes, meeting like the product, the engineering. I'm like not the first salesperson on the floor, but I'm one of the first SDR managers that's done this for a while. And I've got some experience of process and stuff. And I think the thing that I'm finding really hard, Amitesh and Vivek, is I know how things should be and how it could be. And I'm really tempted to try and implement and put these changes now. But the way that I'm stopping myself is every new meeting that I'm going into, I'm just saying, hey, look, I've been in SaaS for about 11 years. I know how a lot of things work in other companies, but I'd rather observe how you guys work and what your processes are, what are the dynamics. And if I can spot any small tweaks or bits of advice, I'm happy to give it, but I'm really having to hold back. But going through that phase of new is something really cool. How did you come across the opportunity, Amitesh? Like how did you find these guys?
actually, I was looking at different other jobs, and kind of, healthcare was kind of outside my realm of understanding at that point.
Mm,
But then, I kind of, like deep down in my heart, like the world has gone through a major shift, and due to COVID and the pandemic, and especially the situation back home in India, like the
mm,
healthcare system has just failed,
yeah.
of sorts. But it's just like a very emotional aspect of me, kind of, thought of getting into healthcare, and kind of, making these to be with the product that's kind of, helping these healthcare workers out.
Mm,
And that's where, my decision kind of, I went towards bookchain, and the whole process was pretty smooth and simple. I had two interviews, both with the VP of sales, and he kind of liked me, and we kind of, had a little banter call afterwards. That he called me up, I think after, just before I got the offer, he called me up and he said, like, unfortunately, we've had to say no to all the other guys, and we've decided to give this offer to you. And I was like, dude, that you I skipped a beat there. So, and I kind of, when I had like other companies that I was, kind of interviewing with,
yeah.
throughout the process. And when I signed the contract, I sent it over the HR, and I called up the VP of sales, and I was like, hey, Joseph, unfortunately, I had to say no to all the other companies, and I've decided. So it was a good fun exercise on my bit. But then, I love the company. I love, my VP of sales, and it's good because he's been there, done that, and I have a lot of opportunity to grow. And especially, if you were working with a product that you're emotionally kind of involved with, you
Yeah.
kind of put in that extra. Like, I know I'm going to give my 100%, but then if you're emotionally invested, you kind of give your 200%, and that's where,
Mm.
my understanding is right now.
Absolutely. So that's a cool journey, and shouts out to that VP. That was a very sneaky thing to do, but I love the way that you played him at his own game. And I agree with you. I think I got asked this question by an SDR manager, as which was like, does your SDR have to believe in the product, or are they okay with just product and being able to sell it? Like, what makes them great? And I said, the one that really has, to your point, an emotional attachment to that business or that vision and mission, they're going to be giving you way over the odds of 100% into that role because they fully believe in it. And but on the other side of the coin is, yeah, somebody could just pick up a product, they learn how to use it, and yes, they could definitely sell it, but they're not going to be as in heart as the other person. And I said to the person, does that answer your question? They're like, yeah, it does. It does. So I agree with you with that, Amitesh. So Vivek,
Yeah.
for you, like, what was the transformation and what was the journey into the new world?
Well, it's sort of an interesting one. So I realized like, and I think it's good for everyone to realize that it's as difficult it is for an
Mm,
organization to find the right people as it is for the job seeker to find the right organization. So I think that that moment of acceptance, suddenly changes your behavior, your outlook towards your job search, and in general, towards your career. And after that, I started realizing, like, for me, what is important. So I sort of thrive in small teams. So usually what we consider when you're looking for a job is, what is the comp, what's the product like. And I mean, they are definitely
mm,
important, but you're going to be spending 8 hours a day, 5 days a week with these people. So for me, the team was really important. The team size, the team members, and obviously the person you're directly going to work with. So that was one of the key aspects which I was considering. And obviously, with respect to the product, I've been in the startup world since a while now, and every aspect of a business, sort of, as Amitesh mentioned,
mm,
contributes to an impact indirectly or directly to humanity or to anything in general. So, and as we all know, growing out of the comfort zone only leads you to better situations. And I was new to the HR space. I mean, I didn't know what
yeah.
HR was. I mean, as much, like, for us, it was just what we know, it's recruiting, all of that stuff. And but I signed up, and that was sort of an uncomfortable moment for me. Like, I don't know the space. Like with Vidyard, like we had got pretty familiar with Martech and advertising in general, and thought, okay, let's take the leap. I might not be as passionate, but let's see how that goes. And after having been 2 weeks into it, I've been amazed how HR is so important in an organization, because I mean, we are in that place where we've seen attrition, the reasons of attrition, why someone would want to leave the organization, why someone would want to join the organization. And when we take 5 steps behind, we realize HR is the main reason why, the sort of one of the main reasons why an organization thrives. And and suddenly 2 weeks into it, I see myself super passionate, like, and as I say this, so it's pretty interesting how all of those dynamics change as well, just like how the tech landscape changes. So it's really important to understand that some things what you might not have liked in the past, you might loving it in the future or in the present. So it's pretty interesting how that journey has developed. Having said that, at IntelliHR, so it's, as I mentioned earlier, it's an Australian HR tech company, and they recently set up shop in North America and the UK. And I'm sort of the first hire as an SDR on the West Coast. So it's sort of that scrappy feeling again, where I have to learn things on the go. As Amitesh mentioned, like, you just have to have those Zoom meetings in place. You might be fatigued a little, that initial bit might be difficult, but it's super important to have that initial connection with your immediate team members, and then with the other people who are actually contributing towards, like, say, the software developer. He never gets to interact with anyone. Come on, just hit him up, man. Talk to him for 10 minutes or 15 minutes. What's wrong with that? So I think that's really important, and it has sort of cascades into your interests and your outlook towards things. And I'm almost 2 weeks in. I'm super grateful to be here, and I feel that I've made the
Absolutely.
nicest
And you're
decision
very
of
right. HR
taking this
is
up,
very
and
important.
I'm
It's more than
looking
just
forward to fill it.
sickness or a grievance or something like that. They're the people that help like keep this company together. But what's really cool for like the both of you is you're both, so like for yourself, Amitesh, like in terms of healthcare, you wanted to help people. And if you think of Vivek from your side, HR is to support people. So you're kind of going into realms of like helping people, and it's people based and it's people centric, which is really cool. And both of you being like that first person on the ground in that position, you're going to be helping this company build out their processes with the experiences that you've taken on. And I think that's a freaking cool place to be. And it can be a bit scary at times when you're that first person on the ground, and you've got these VPs or these marketers saying like, so yeah, how should we prospect? How should we reach out to people? Like, how are we going to find the post owners? And you'll sit there and think, aha. It's kind of like leaving, like, I don't know, like going back to university or going back to education with a mind of now. That's the way I've always perceived it.
Yeah.
But interestingly, like you say, I'm just hearing you both, it made me reflect of like the different startups that I've been in. So like when I was working at Showpad, I was learning how to sell to sales and marketing, and we were speaking to a lot of VPs, CMOs, CROs, and we was learning of how do they, run a business, because we were training sales teams through our solution. Then I went into the world of cybersecurity, again, had no developer knowledge, didn't understand code or anything like that, and realized that with developers, most of the people that I'd met or worked with were very introverted as well. So that was a different one. So how do we sell as an extroverted person, sell to an introverted person? And how do we have those discussions? And equally, like, how do I keep my Mac safe? How to make sure I don't get hacked, because I've got a lot of sensitive data on my laptop. And then when I went to Intro, I learned, okay, we did a HR solution. We was helping HR, we was helping with employee engagement. So how do you run a one-to-one? How do you do a performance review? How do you like provide motivation for your team and recognize them for their achievements? And then now coming to Happio, again, it's again in the world of HR and employee engagement and experience, but it's more from a social aspect. So they provide a platform similar to like Facebook for work, of how do you create communications from the bottom up. So a lot of companies have top-down communication where CEOs say stuff, it gets filtered to the water cooler, people don't get what the hell, but how do you give that power to the employee? And the reason why I've gone into all these different industries is not just to say, yeah, I've worked in loads of startups and I know what the hell I'm doing. It's because I want to know how to handle all these elements in my own company. Because one day I envision that I will have a company that will need a HR department, that will need a cybersecurity, that will need a way to boost employee engagement and morale. So I'm going into it to learn of what can I learn from this industry. And that's another way to look at it. Because I think with some SDRs, they may get caught up of wanting to stay in the same industry or stay with a similar product set because they're comfortable with it. But you learn so much more, to your points. And again, congratulations to both, going into a world that you're not familiar with, but you're very open to learning. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And to come on, before we come towards the end of the show, I did say I would come back to it. Vivek, there was something I saw coming off the back of you in terms of video. And I wanted to give a little bit of props because, like, you've come onto my show today, you've helped arrange this meeting together as a duo. So, again, I'm going to open the floor a little bit. What's Lockdown TV, dude?
So that again is an outcome of being open to learn. I have to give a shout out. So Jacob from Vidya, I was having a chat with him, and I sort of told him, like, I deliver a lot of value in one-on-one conversations, which I have, with my LinkedIn connections. And so he's like, what is stopping you from, posting it to your entire audience? I'm like, but again, that friction, I'm a little skeptical about that. I've never done that. Why should I do it? He's like, take the leap, try it. I mean, it does make sense that if I'm having those one-on-ones so effectively, why can't I deliver to the entire audience? Made that first episode. Before clicking the post button, I was thinking, like, it took 10 minutes, I still remember, to click that post button. But I think that was the best. I mean, Amitesh also supported me at that point, like, do it. And I posted it and got lots of love, and that's been I'm never stopping now because it's something which I'm enjoying. I've been that's how I met you, Neil, as well. Like, we've been following a lot of people on LinkedIn. I sort of found, like, some of us have a tendency to get too serious about things, and I thought, let's try to add some value from the ground
SDRs to SDRs,
in a funny way. And we're all in lockdown, so let's call it Lockdown TV. So that was the simple idea from SDRs. Yeah, and I never stopped there, and I've been giving out my ideas from my heart there, and I've been making mistakes. Sometimes, some episodes I'm not myself. My mood is affecting me, but that's okay. We're all human, and it's bound to happen. We're not here to make that perfect Netflix show, as I mentioned earlier, where everyone has to see the production or my audio quality. So I think it's been a wonderful experience, and I'm really liking the fact that everyone's not only enjoying it, like the humor aspect of it, but also absorbing value, because it's not coming from some pro expert who's been in the industry for like 45 years. It's just I'm the simple same SDR where thousands of us are here, and just giving out those insights, what's worked for me, what's not. It might not work for you, it might. We're all here to experiment. So just trying. I've mentioned in one of the posts, like, Steve Jobs mentioned, we're trying to put a dent in the universe. What are we doing? So this is my attempt, as I mentioned there. So simple.
So definitely for the listeners and watchers, if you guys want to check out Lockdown TV with Vivek, I'll put a link in the show notes from this episode. So go definitely check it out, subscribe, like it. That'd be super cool. And as we're now coming towards the end of the show, gents, and it's been the best show that I've had so far as a dynamic duo, so thank you so much for that. Coming to you, Amitesh, first, like, what would be the 3 bits of advice that you would give to a younger Amitesh who, a couple of years ago, he was just about to, like, leave India and think about, like, joining startups in tech and SaaS? What 3 bits of advice would you give to him?
I think first and foremost, like, don't be afraid, man. Just don't be afraid don't get overwhelmed by the situation, by the newness, almost of everything. Be comfortable in uncomfortable situations. That's like the first tip that I would like to give, because that's where your growth lies, man. And that's where I think that's what stops almost everyone from, like, reaching their true success, their personal success in life. Second up is, find a company that fuels your passion. Like how I say that, I'm emotionally invested in a company. Find a company where the work does not seem like work. It's all fun from there on.
Mm.
And last up, don't be afraid to show a little bit of vulnerability, because that's where like the human connect lies. Yeah, so that's my three top hot takes on like what I would tell my younger self.
Absolutely love it, Amitesh. Thank you so much. And would you like to give any shout outs on today's show to anybody out there?
Uh, Big shout out to Lockdown TV though, since I was the first guest on Lockdown TV. So big shout out to Lockdown TV and Vivek for that. Other than that, a huge shout out to my wife, who's been my constant support throughout these. I've been married happily for like 5-6 years now. She's been you know like she's seen the highs, she's seen the lows, and she's been there throughout. But professionally, it's like huge thumbs up to you, Neil. You've been a great support throughout. Your podcast is something that kind of, I remember the first podcast I shared with Vivek. I think it was your podcast. I think it was the one you did with Courtney
Hmm.
at Vidyard.
Yeah.
So I keep listening to your podcast, and I can't, I have like eternal gratitude towards the Uvaro family, the place where we did our tech sales bootcamp. I don't want to name names because everyone has been instrumental in where I am today.
Dude, that is a heartfelt shout out. Shout out to the missus as well, because having that partner like go through with that all as well, all the people there, and to Lockdown TV and to your partner in crime. Still trying to figure out who's Batman and who's Robin, but that's absolutely
Both of us are
beautiful.
Batmans.
Both of you are the Batmans. All right, I'll be your Robin for today. How about that?
You can be the Superman, because it's happy selling always.
Oh, thank you so much, dude. I really appreciate it.
Works.
Thank you. And coming to you, Vivek. So, like, if you were to record, like, a Lockdown TV episode where you're gonna like send this to the past version of yourself, what three top tips would come into that episode?
Uh, Too many top tips, but number one, uh, make more mistakes. I think as a younger self, I mean, I've made enough, but I just feel I should have made some more, because as you grow older, you sort of stabilize with
Mm.
your mindset. So try to make those mistakes as early as possible, because nothing like failing fast and learning fast. So I think that's number one. Second is little oriented towards sales. I think it's super important to understand that before we join any organization
Mm.
as salespeople, we are our own salespeople. All our friends, our families, our loved ones, they are all prospects. We'll have them long term if we deliver value at every point in life. So I think having that sort of a mindset is because of something like that's the reason we are all here right now. We've all added value in each other's lives. We have seen value, and that's why we are here. So I think that's number two. Number three, just be
Mm.
yourself. It's the most, I think it's the simplest basic tip I can give to anyone. You don't have to pretend, you don't have to, change for anyone. I mean, you might, grow into something, that's fair, but you don't have to change for anyone. So, I mean,
Yeah,
I don't care. People have a lot of different comments over, for example, my hair.
yeah,
I don't care. It's okay. I like it. I enjoy it. I feel comfortable. So I think it's super
yeah.
important
I
to
think
have that
Vivek
mindset.
gets his
And
superpowers
yeah,
from
I
his
think these are the three
luscious
basic tips.
hair.
And yeah,
Those locks,
that's it
those
from my
beautiful
end.
locks, dude. No, I love it. But I agree with you. I like. I've always said this to team. Like, I don't really care what people think of me. Like everybody has their perceptions. The only people that I care of, what people they think of me, are like my close friends and family, the people that I respect and the
Yeah,
people that I love. Because not everybody's going to like me. Not everybody's going to like
yeah,
what I say, but that's their problem and not mine. And I'm always up for a debate. I'm always up for a discussion. But my job is not to please others. It's to make sure that I'm happy within myself. So I can 100% relate to that. And I'd love to have your locks, Vivek. I'd love to have long hair like that. I've always tried it. I always get to a certain point and then I'm just like, nah, just cut it off and I'll be there. But gentlemen, both Batmans, from your Robin here, it's been an absolute blast having you both on the show. And I wish you both the best success and happy selling in these new ventures. And definitely we need to get this dynamic duo back on a future show to see how things have gone since from today. But for the listeners and watchers, again, thank you for joining us on this dynamic duo episode, first ever. Super exciting. Make sure I'll put the links to both Amitesh and Vivek so that you can find them on LinkedIn if you want to reach out and ask them any questions. I'll put the links to the Lockdown TV as well. And by all means, if you're listening to this episode through your local podcast provider, please give us a rating and some feedback, and equally share out this episode with your network, because we're trying to help as many sales development people out there understand this world of sales development, fall in love with it, and share best practices, because it's all about happy selling. But Amitesh and Vivek, thank you so much, and I wish you both happy selling.
Thank you so much, Neil. Have a great day, and we're looking forward to what this episode does to the sales
Thank you
community,
so much, Neil.
to future SDRs. Like, yeah, man, it's good to be part of a journey like happy selling, and we're proud.
And just a short message from my end. Everyone listening or watching to this episode, big shout out to Neil, because he's been a solid inspiration in doing things out of our comfort zone. Like when he proposed this idea of being on a podcast, and both Amitesh and I were like struck back, like, can we do this? So we have, again, with this episode or in general coming on a podcast, have come out of a comfort zone.
You guys are the best. I freaking love you both. Thank you so much.
It's a shout out to everyone.
So much sales love right there.
Don't be
Amitesh and
afraid.
Vivek, an absolute pleasure for having you on the SDR DiscoCall podcast. We will definitely see you back for a future episode. And for the listeners and watchers out there, thank you so much and happy selling. Thank you so much for listening to our show today. If you work in tech sales and have a career or story that you'd love to share, then please email us at podcast@happyselling.io and we'll be in contact to book in a show.